Welcome to the first podcast of the Student Sports Advocacy. I'm Ian Doe, and I'm joined by.
Sarani Yappa, and our first guest is Coach Brewer.
Hi, I'm Coach Brewer. I started at King High School in 2002 and have coached numerous things, but mainly softball and girls golf and a little bit of boys golf. So, it's been enjoyable the whole time I've been here.
Coach Brewer, what do you enjoy most about working with student athletes?
I think, there's a lot of answers I could give to that, but I think one of them, I know that when I was in sports growing up in high school and college, it's probably where I grew the most because I was challenged the most. Not that I wasn't challenged in my academic classes, but sports, you really got to take a hard look at yourself through some defeats and through some challenges, and you have to really decide if you're going to really push through and be a good teammate and stuff like that. So I just felt that that's something that I wanted to go into in my career.
Do you think that these challenges can be like the greatest source of growth for a high school athlete?
I think if you have the right support system, yes. I also think it's really easy internally. We put our own types of pressure on ourselves, and then we have external pressures from what we think our parents want to what our coaches want to all that. So I think managing those pressures and having, replacing those negative thoughts we have in our head with positive statements, which is a skill you can learn, I think it'll be really helpful.
Yeah. How has your experience coaching multiple sports shaped your overall coaching philosophy across different teams?
Well, there's a couple things in my philosophy that have never changed, and then there's a couple things in my philosophies that have really changed over time, because you have to adapt and adjust to your team each year. And you could have 80% of the same team members for 3 years in a row, but each year is a different team because they're a year older. They have different pressures. They have different expectations. So you have to adapt and adjust. It can't just be the same way I coached 30 years ago. So that my philosophy, though, for sure, winning at all costs, it's not okay. It's not okay. So you can't just cheat. You can't treat your players like they're not humans, like they're objects. They are human beings. And communication, I've coached mostly girls. Communicating with boys is important too, but it's a different kind of route that you take with them. So the communication is key. I'm always going to put the team first, but I think when you go down that slope of winning at all costs, I think you sacrifice your integrity sometimes, and that's just not something I'm going to do. We don't really we talk about winning a little bit because it has to be talked about and it has to be kind of one of those goals, but honestly, I'm not that interested in individual goals. I'm interested in team goals. So we really try to take care of the process as much as we can, and then the wins and losses they'll take care of themselves.
I had the great honor of being coached by you earlier during my fall season this year. What were some things that you took from coaching girls softball into coaching girls golf, since they're two completely different sports? Any specifics?
Yeah, well, thank you. I don't know if it's a great honor, but I'll take that as a compliment, and I'll just stick that in my back pocket for later. So, I think golf and tennis sometimes are looked at as such an individual sport and not as a team sport. And I can see both. I can see both as a legitimate perspective. But at the end of the day, so for golf, when you're deciding, on this next shot, it's really key. Is this next shot, it's like a risk reward. Am I going to go for it and put my team in jeopardy? Or am I just going to play safer, and I might end up saving us a stroke? So to get that thought process of where a person is thinking about the team before themselves, I don't think it's just with golf or tennis. I think the individual, I think that's part of the issue. I think we're so focused on our individual self that we get so overwhelmed with things and so wrapped up in things, and it becomes so much more fun, so much more positive, and such a much better experience and less stress if you can put the team first and serve the team rather than what's in it for me.
Yeah, I think something similar for me when I first started out on boys tennis. It felt very individual. I was the only thing I was focusing on. But as I grew to like enjoy the team and be closer with the team, it felt more like a team sport, and like the environment felt closer and better, and I
Good,
just adapted more towards that kind of excellence
good.
for my team and not just for myself.
Yeah, I think it's really important that when you start to give to your teammates, that's where you really grow exponentially. You really feel it and see it, because by you teaching them something or giving them something between the ears that that really has helped you, you are serving your team, and that's a great satisfaction.
So, how has the mental and physical health affected your teams, and what did you do to try and help them?
Well, when I first started coaching, there were no cell phones, so that tells you how old I am. So the cell phones, that's a whole nother podcast in itself. I think, like anything, it has to be monitored, and I think only certain things should be viewed in certain times. But if you're on the screen all the time, and you have to have it on you all the time, and you have to be checking it, I think that's a big deal. I think that's a big deal that this generation is going through, that we have had to deal with, for sure. And parents too. Parents get to decide. They pay the bills, so they get to decide things. But I think that screen time has really had a big impact, whether you're a student athlete or not, on mental health. I truly believe that. Secondly, I think mental health is really coming out to the forefront, and I'm glad that it is. Um, I know podcasts sometimes can be controversial, and I might say something that might be controversial, but back to, I think the sport that you play is just something that you play. And I think what happens is young people's identity gets really mixed in with their sport. And then they feel good or bad based on the outcome of their performance. And I just think that that's a wrong message. Not wrong. It's not healthy. It's just something that you do. So you play tennis, you play golf. I played multiple sports, and it's really easy to do. So, coaching girls, they have to like feel good and look good to play well. Guys have to play well to feel good, right? So it's the same thing, but it's just an activity that you do. But I think there's a lot of internal pressures that you guys put on yourselves. And then you have your external pressures. How are you going to manage that? So I think that has really created a lot more, maybe the mental health stuff, where you can get kind of feel a little isolated. You can feel sad or depressed. And I think you have to separate the person and the act of what you're doing, the sport that you're playing. And I think they get layered in and lumped in. And I think you need a good support system, a healthy support system, to make sure they stay separate. What your score is, whatever it is, a missed putt, a missed fairway, an unforced error, pitcher gives up a home run in the end, whatever it might be, that is part of competition. And I think you need to separate the human from the competition. Competition should be fun. It should be exciting. That's why we play. We like to compete. So I think a lot of the play has to be put back in, the emphasis of playing for enjoyment instead of the external outcomes.
And do you think those like internal pressures come from sports being so available outside of high school, and like a lot of kids, especially at King, striving to go past high school and playing college?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I know in all of the club sports, right, outside of high school sports, the travel balls for all of it, the volleyball, the softball, the baseball, the golf, the tournaments that you play, the tennis, every sport, right? Polo, girls flag football is now just a hot sport to play. So I think there's a lot of pressure that people look beyond college, because college is so expensive. They look beyond what they're doing for that next college thing, right? That scholarship. And I think there's a college out there for everybody. You don't have to go D1. D1 doesn't, D1, D2, D1's not for everybody, right? It's great. You're going to get a lot more money, but you know what? It's a job, and they own you. They own you. They do. They are paying part of your college or all of your college, and you are their employee. And that's the way it's looked at. But I do honestly think the trickle-down effect from college, like you look at the transfer portal. There's kids, and I don't know anybody's reason for transferring. I'm not going to judge that or say why they do, but you have the NIL money. Who's to say? I mean, if Johnny wants to go somewhere else where he's going to get more money to play, that's his right. But I think it's a little bit out of control. I personally would rather see, even in high school, kids transfer. And I can't say why they do or why they don't. That's not for me to say. But I do believe that if you can stick certain things out, you're going to grow a lot more from it than just leaving a difficult situation, because life is more difficult than it's easy. And if you just go here and you go there and you go looking for that, that next thing, you're really missing where your feet are. So I do think it's played a big part in the mental health, is the transferring, the expectations, managing the expectations that you feel that you're receiving, from your coaches and parents and whatnot. It's tough. So there's some good conversations, I think, to be had between, kids and their parents. I do.
So you've been mentioning like support systems for the mental and physical problems that student athletes have. What do you think is like the best or the better support systems, and how do you think we can build off of those to create even better support systems for these athletes?
Great question. So when I was going through sports and all that, those were my best moments. Those were my best times. That's where I felt my best. That's where I excelled. I loved my teammates. Don't get me wrong. Not all of them were great to play with, and I'm sure they felt that way about me too, So, but for the most part, it was my best time. So I never really thought about a support system, but I had one. I had them in place. I had great coaches that held me to a standard and didn't let me get away with things if I tried to, because I think everybody tries to here and there. That's how we are. And we don't really want to practice and try the things that we're not good at. We want to stick with the things that we're good at, right? And feel good about ourselves. And everything's about feelings. Well, if you're not feeling good, that's a warning. That's a warning that something's up. It's actually your friend. Let's deal with it. Let's not avoid it. Let's not run from it. Let's run to it and let's deal with it. And so the support system, if you have really healthy parents or grandparents or coaches or whoever your support system is that puts their arm around you after a win or a loss and just says, I love you no matter what, great job. Because athletes are really putting themselves out there for everybody to judge. Look how many people don't play sports. So right there, you're a winner. You're a winner for trying out. You're a winner for showing up. You're a winner for making the team. So those are the messages that I think that you need to have from your people. And if they're not giving them to you, you got to give them to yourself. Does that make sense? Yeah. Sports system's huge.
So what's one thing that you wish athletes understood better about coaches?
Well, that's hard because one of my favorite sayings is, you don't know what you don't know till you know it. So how in the world are you supposed to know what we coaches go through, right? And we, just by the nature of we're older than you and have played sports, we know what you're going through, mostly. Not everything, but mostly. So I'm not sure how to answer that question because I don't know if there's an answer. I think we're also in a profession where you really don't know how it impacts your players unless they tell you 10 years from now, or they come back and say hello, or they come back and say, hey, I'd like to coach with you for a year, or they shoot you an email and said, hey, or they invite you to their wedding, or what it might be. You're not always sure. Sometimes you can tell by their actions or the camaraderie that you're trying to promote in your program. But I'm not exactly sure how to answer that question because I don't know. I'm not saying it's not a fair question, but you guys aren't coaches, nor should any of us expect you to be coaches. But I do think that if you can get, especially your senior leadership and your upperclassmen, to really, if you let them in on things and let them decide a little bit, it's their team, there's some ownership, I think it grows. I think it's a better way to do it.
How do facilities or access to equipment impact athlete performance and confidence?
Access to facilities. That's a big one. And then what was the other part of the question? Sorry.
Yeah. Access to equipment.
Access to equipment. I think King has done a great job. I think we have great facilities. I do think it would be great for the gym to expand. I'm sure we all would love like 3 gyms and all that because there's so many so many sports now. So with new sports coming, so like boys and girls lacrosse, that's new in the last 10 years or whatever it might be. Boys volleyball, flag football. We're really sharing a lot of space. I do believe that we get supported with equipment, with uniforms, things like that. Um, I can tell you if it's back to that college trickle down effect. If there are certain teams on campus that get an extra locker room and other teams don't, is that noticed? I don't know. You'd have to ask the athletes. I know the coaches notice it. So I also don't think everything in life is going to be fair, nor is it meant to be fair. I really don't. I think people spend a lot of time trying to make it fair, but fair doesn't mean equal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So specifically regarding like school and team culture, how important is the viability and like promotion of these sports on campus?
Can I read that question? Sometimes it helps me to look at it. I think I honestly think back when Dennis Brown was here, he was an AD for 2 years here. He's the one that implemented the Peak program. I would love for that to get I would love for athletes to actually understand that. So I like that we pick a Peak representative, and which is great, but I think there's so much more that can be done with that. And I think that's where the camaraderie and supporting other sports with that, if that's that common language and that common identity, I think you're going to really see school spirit really explode. So I think they do a great job. We have obviously the social media. Mr. Peters does a great job writing those articles. That's huge. So how do we make sure that, is softball reading about basketball? Is basketball reading about wrestling? But it's all right there. How do we promote it? I think they're doing a great job staying up on things. I really do. It's hard. It's a lot of work. But I do think they are doing a good job promoting all of our sports.
Like, how do you think more community engagement, like fans or fundraising or just any type of promotion, will help athletes perform better?
I've always said your best fundraisers are your alumni. Just like college, it's the alum that give back, right? So I think if athletes have a good experience here, they're going to want to give back when they can, whether that's financially, whether that's time wise, whether that's, maybe a couple of them have gone on to do different things and they come back and talk to teams about, be like a motivational speaker. It's hard. Everybody's kind of tapped out. Everybody has a fundraiser. So all of your people are getting asked every year. All of your people are getting asked every year. And if there's parents that have 2 or 3 kids here, they have that village, right? It takes a village. So those 20 people are getting asked every year, but it's hard. It's not easy. It would be great if we had like an overall general fund where all the donations went to, and then it was monies were allocated, to the sports or to the seasons, fall, winter sport. I don't know if that would work or not, but it would be great to have a general fund, maybe where we did like a Keene High School a golf tournament where we raised money. You know what I mean? That everybody loves to golf, and even if they can't, they love to do it because they're with their friends and they have a great time. I know it's a lot of organization, but if you get the right, and there's companies that help out too with that. I mean, sponsor. There's a lot of ways to make a lot of money. And so now everybody's only hit up once. Maybe it's the I don't know, the first Monday of the year we have one, or it's the last day of school, or it's the last Thursday, Saturday in October. I don't know. There's one day where it annually becomes a fun event and you don't want to miss it. And then you take those revenues and maybe put it in a pot for all of the athletes. Some have more needs this year. Some might have more needs the other year. That's a way for all the communities, all the parents and everything to get one time instead of 30 times in 4 years. Does that make sense?
All right, so one final question. What's one message you would want student athletes here on King to hear?
I think I mentioned it earlier that, you always hear those sayings like be a good representation, model integrity, all those things, right? I mean, I don't want to spit that back out. They are important, but I really think it's key. You don't isolate yourself. you think about your team first before yourself, and that you separate your identity. You are not playing golf is something you do, just like maybe you like to read, maybe you like to write, maybe you like to draw, right? That is something that you do. It's not who you are. Does that make sense? I think that's a key to learn how to, after a game, just, you know what? I did this really well. Always start with positive. I did this really well. I didn't do that so well. I'm going to work on that at practice tomorrow. Done. Instead of just ruminating on, I can't believe I made that error. I can't believe I missed that putt. I can't believe I double faulted. Whatever it might be. It's just something you do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to tune into the next episode.